Thank you, Nikki. I appreciate that. These are some of the other slides that you had for Richie Ventures, so I'll just show those in this for a second here, and then a little bit about myself, as Nikki mentioned. So these are the other webinars, as Nikki mentioned, that you have access to. So I encourage you to access them as well as the future ones that we have scheduled. During the during this webinar, please submit your questions via the chat box, and we'll get a chance to answer them. And I welcome everybody to this session as well as the previous sessions. I hope you've been getting a lot of information out and are encouraged to learn a little bit more about R. Um, as we go through, discussions of R, what does R really mean to you? When I was started getting into R, many of these are the key topics that I had questions on. I'm sure you all have it as well. Open source, free software, validation, R Shiny. These are good and valid questions, and as you learn more about R, then you get answers to them. You have that comfort level. Definitely what I found making the transition from SAS into R is definitely a learning curve there. But what I've done is in my way to learn R, I've removed many of the obstacles and had a clear path as I'm doing a comparison with SAS, so I know exactly how to bring the data into R. But not only that, but also to confirm the data that I brought in. So in this session, I'm going to be introducing you to some of these techniques so that it'll help you get a jump start. One of the things that you'll see, and it can be very confusing and overwhelming, is this concept of packages. At the time I put this slide together, we're looking at hundreds of packages, but actually there are thousands of packages. So definitely can be very overwhelming. Contrast that with SAS, you have one language, and then you have the modules and the versions. But on the other side, our packages give us tremendous power and flexibility. Fortunately, we don't have to learn all of the packages that are available. If we focus on the common packages, so Tidyverse. Tidyverse is a common package. It's a very comprehensive package that enables us to do many things. So if we focus our efforts on learning the Tidyverse, then we will go a long ways to leveraging the power of R and not necessarily knowing and how to do all of the packages, because once you master the many packages that are there within Tidyverse, you can actually learn and apply those types of techniques in other packages because they work very similar. So we'll go through many of those things. And as I mentioned, some of the things that I would recommend is to avoid think some of the things to avoid as you're going through learning about R. One of the things is matrix. As you see here, R is a very object-oriented programming type language, and when I'm comparing it with SAS, I'm looking at SAS data sets. In the world of R, it's basically data frames. And with our objects, R is very powerful and very flexible. And the problem with being very flexible is it can be very confusing. So I avoided many of these objects that are listed here, such as arrays and matrix, as I mentioned, and then the row names. And then what you see is there's some other variable types that initially, again, while learning R, you can skip these things, so such as lists and logical, because they're a little bit more advanced. Again, initially, I'm looking at comparing R with SAS. And so I want a streamlined approach to better understand and master the concepts. And so with this type of approach, I was actually looking at practical type applications, practical functions, in order for me to get things done. And as I mentioned, Tidyverse is a big thing, the dplyr, SQL type processing, and so forth. And for my students, that has worked well as well. It worked for them as well, because being overwhelmed is not a good way to learn any type of language. And as you get into R, my world definitely was turned upside down because I knew everything, what to do in SAS, but then in R, I didn't know how to do anything. So it was like walking in a room that with complete darkness. But I quickly learned that R is very similar to SAS procedures or maybe Excel files, are actually more corresponding to SAS macros. In SAS macros, you have a collection of parameters, and some of those are required. And then the best usage of the R functions is knowing the parameters, knowing the valid values of those parameters, and which ones are those are required. That way, you can fully utilize and get error-free running our code. And so with R, you can do again practically everything: data cleaning, management, analysis, as I mentioned. R is really more of an abstract type of language because it's syntax driven. You'll see dollar signs and you see brackets, and you'll see a lot of nested functions. And that's just the way the R language is. So again, there's advantages and disadvantages to that, as we'll take a look at. On the left-hand side, you'll see that there are, again, many packages. Again, the packages basically is a way to kind of group and categorize the type of functions that are available in those packages, again, for a particular purpose. So you see packages that bring data in, export data, analysis, and the concept of data wrangling. Data wrangling basically is data management. So the ability to transform and standardize data and transpose, that type of things, and including summarization. And then, of course, you have data visualization. But in the world of R, you can think of that as, we're all on this journey, and the packages, they meet common goals, common challenges, and the developer, you can consider to be like a driver, has the visionary. We're SAS programmer. I mean, we're R programmers. So basically, we're like passengers or fans, and utilizing these packages. There are many ways to take a look at the validation. Again, my strategy is to focus and utilize the common packages, the tidyverse that I mentioned, because you can't go wrong if everybody is continuously using them. And I do want to mention that the tidyverse is an enhanced version of the base R functions. And with those, that makes it a little bit easier to use, and they're more connective. But there are also some IT challenges with using R because it's kind of a spaghetti type of atmosphere. There's dependencies, there's versions, and so. But if you have the IT support, the control of the development and production type environments, then you can have a very stable type of a setting. But keep that in mind. That's how ours is different. Other things, as we talk about packages, as I mentioned, the dplyr there, the ggplot2, the data table, and there are many other packages that are listed. And so working and using, again, the common packages, as I mentioned, tidyverse, you can go a long way with that. And there are packages specifically for SAS, the Haven, the H miscellaneous. Those are essential for bringing SAS data into R as well as exporting. Other packages also exist for Excel and CSV files and so forth. Later, I'll talk a little bit more about the Farmaverse because, again, that's another whole area that's very similar to tidyverse. So with tidyverse, you see this collection of packages that are available to do whatever you want to do, whether you're bringing data in or doing any type of data management. As I mentioned, the dplyr is extremely important. With any type of language, we want to be able to query the data. We want to be able to summarize it. We want to be able to do some derivations. So we can do all these things. We can do some visualization. So this tidyverse is, again, a collection of packages that you see over here. And each one of those packages have a collection of functions. Farmaverse, you can consider that to be the tidyverse version for the pharmaceutical industry. And the nice thing about the Farmaverse is being developed by top top pharma and CROs and agencies in our pharma industry to meet and fill any of the gaps that we see in our clinical trial development process. So you'll see packages that help you create SDTMs or check SDTMs or create atoms or any types of analysis. And then, of course, there's the shiny apps like the tidycdisk. So organizations can leverage any one of these packages that have been developed in order to fill that gap, and they don't have to develop their in-house SaaS silos. And so that will greatly save them a lot of time. Many people have concerns about validation, which is a very valid concern. Now, everything that we've done and learned in the SaaS programming environment can still be applicable in the R field. So everything that's been done with installation, operational qualifications, that can still be done in the R field. And as people are looking at migrating R into their infrastructure and teams, they may be considering using R as a validation and SaaS as a source. So they'll be doing some comparison of the numbers for that. It's important to keep in mind there's some slight differences in the way SaaS and R handles and processes like missing data or rounding. And so there's some documentation of that. And I encourage you also to visit our Guru, the SaaS page to see the details. But taking a look at the accuracy, traceability, reproducibility, all those things are definitely available in R. So it's not like you can't do the validation. You can still do the validation. Very much consider this like doing the validation of SaaS macro programs. If you've done macro program development, you know that it takes 10 times longer to do that than a regular SaaS program. And so our packages will be along the same lines. So what are some of the reasons that people are considering R? What are the advantages maybe over SaaS? You can do a direct replacement of SaaS. You know, many organizations are looking at cost savings. You can definitely do that. It requires leadership commitment, and again, it has all the components that you're doing in SaaS. You can also do that with R, but maybe you just want to remove some of the pain points that's there in SaaS. Again, the graphs, data visualization in R makes it so much easier than what you have in SaaS. Or the last option is enhanced. What you see is when you get to learn about R, you see that R provides tremendous power flexibility as far as data frame options, being able to directly reference variables and do a lot of things with that. I did also mention the Farmerverse and then also the R Shiny apps. But then also, statisticians may want the latest statistical modeling. And the other thing that's kind of a hidden gem is being able to easily create dummy data. So throughout the whole process, as you learn more about R, especially for SaaS programmers, I always like to draw comparison. And many of the things that we are doing in SaaS, we can still follow and do in R, as we need to bring the data in, we need to do any sorting, we need to do any summarization, we need to do any type of derivations and appending and so forth. So all that is still applicable in R. Again, it is important to take a look at the differences that are there. This is a slide just documenting some of these things. Obviously, as I mentioned, you have to have a long-term vision in order to go about doing this. And the R Guru website has more detailed differences between SaaS and R at the granular level. So it takes a look at the procedures and maybe functions. So you can look up a corresponding SaaS procedure or SaaS function or process, and then see how to do that within R. And actually, within the Fuse organization, there's some working groups that actually are actively looking to compare the two as far as numeric accuracy, doing statistical analysis. So within our Guru, students, organizations looking to learn about R, the fundamentals of R is there, and then creating SDTMs using Tidyverse. So while there are packages that enable you to create SDTMs and Atoms, my objective is for programmers to know using the common package, which is the Tidyverse, to do those things, because that when they know how to do it that way, then it'll be easier with using Oak or Admiral, because those functions are specifically designed for to help the creation of the variables. And when you do it in the tidyverse, you need to know the foundation of the basics. And so you can create SDPMs and atoms, the same logical process as we're doing in SAS. And then from that, using the various packages for creating tables, listings, and graphs, and definitely leveraging the Farmerverse. As I mentioned with the tidyverse, and this shows you some of the syntax. So you can see from the syntax that's there, it's very concise code. The code, our language is case sensitive, so you have to be careful to specify exact functions. You see some of the functions have dots in them, so those are all valid functions. So the syntax is paramount. And what I use many of the default settings that are there within the functions. And then the only case when you need to override them is, then you specify those types of parameters, and then always making sure that those are valid. But this is a very logical type process when you're bringing data into R, any type of data management, derivations or transformations, and then maybe doing visualization or statistical analysis. As I mentioned, R is a very abstract or object-oriented type programming language with the various objects that are created, and then you have the various types of data types, and then you see the biggest column there is the functions. So everything is based off of functions, what to do with functions. References are there to the variable name, but then also the variable position within the data frame. And then I have a list of some of the packages that are there. One of the challenges again is heavily based on syntax, so you have to know and take a closer look, and that's what we're doing now, is taking a closer look at the syntax. Fundamentally, this is what you have. The first item you see on the left-hand side is the new data frame name. So that is the object that gets outputted with the assignment that you see over here. So the assignment is a symbol like that, which is the less than with the dash. You can also have the equal there, but I encourage you to use the native R syntax for the assignment. Basically, this says it's equaling. And then the next thing is the R function. So keep in mind, just like in SAS, it runs off of keywords. Keywords are recognized within the language. So the function name is going to be recognized once the package is loaded. And so R recognizes the function, and then as I mentioned, the parameters. One of the first parameters in most all of the R functions is the data frame name. And after that, you have variables, options, and defaults. And at the very bottom, we see an example where we're creating my_data, the data frame, using the function cbind, and it's going to combine the variables that are listed over there. So this is one example use of the function. And what I always try to do is I always compare and contrast. That's one of the best ways that I learn, as well as programmers learn, just like we're comparing and contrasting R and SAS. Within R, there are similar functions, but they have slightly different objectives. So for example, the mutate and summarize, while they're both enable you to create summary variables, the mutate works well for data sets, data frames, mainly because it preserves all the records and it preserves all the variables. And so the variables that are deriving on the summary variables, if you compare that with the summarize, it's more ideal for generating of tables. Because it consolidates and groups the records. So likewise, you have the if else, which the if else is on the right hand side is from base, and then if else on the left hand side is dplyr. So they're very similar, but again, the dplyr is part of the tidyverse collection of packages, which makes it easier to use. So you see other ways that you can compare and contrast. That way you become really a thorough understanding and master the concepts of R. So here is a workflow process. Again, in the SAS world, we're starting off with a data set, and we build and we transform that data set. In the R world, we're talking about data frames. And so the data frame development process will be something like this, with best practices that are listed over here. Maybe you want to do some overall or group by summarizing variables, You see some of the example functions that are there, such as filter, arrange, group by. Little by little, as you're doing more with R, then you become more familiar with these types of functions and how they um, are fed into each other. Derivation, assignment of the new variables that's there. Other options for transposing the data. So you have the pivot longer, pivot long, pivot wider, and then changing the variable types is there. And then last but not least, doing joins or appending. So all these types of things are available in R. You can kind of think of this as Legos, with the building blocks, because that's exactly what's going on. One object, one data frame, gets fed into another data frame, and you have all these individual data frames that later may be merged or may be appended. And each data frame may be either some selection of the variables or maybe filtering of the variables. So throughout the whole process, we still need to have our design, our logic in place in order to get the desired outcome. You start off with some raw data, and then you have some objectives that you want to complete, and then you can go through these types of process that you need to follow. For the derivations, it's usually something along these lines where you're selecting and filtering. And I'm showing you some of the syntax that's listed over here. So as you can see right away, the references, the syntax that's there basically is selecting specific records, namely where variable VR1, the variable is equal to 10, and also specific variables itself. So VR1 and VR2. So this is a way that's been able to do that. Another popular function is called the mutate, and then also the piping. Piping enables you to stream commands, functions together. Other things for conditional processing are the case when, summary functions, min max, and so forth. These are the types of things that you learn with the data input. You have the setup, bringing data in, and creating the data frames, processing the variables. You also want to take a look at the missing values. Within R, there's a specific syntax for noting missing values, again, summarizing, and then creation of your output, specifying the type of output you want, whether it's Excel, CSV, or any type of output, and then saving those results. So similar type of process that you would do with SAS, you can also replicate that in R. Now, this is an example that I wanted to draw a comparison. So in SAS, we have the in operator, and the in operator will return if the record is coming from one data set as compared to another data set. So in R, while there's not an exact duplicate of this process, I can simulate that. You see on the very bottom, and you see a little bit of the syntax. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a data frame, and so I'm starting off with a data frame. I have another function called data frame. So in the data frame one, what I'm creating a variable called DSN, and I'm setting it to be a fixed value of DF1, and creating a data frame two, and then having that same variable named DSN, setting that equal to be DF2. And then in my third statement, I'm doing a merge. So very similar to what's happening in my data step, I'm doing a merge of those two by the variable team. So my team is the key common variable. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to keep all of the records from both data frames one and two. When I take a look at the data frame three, I'm going to see that that variable DSN equaling DF1 or DF2, depending on where it's coming from. Again, that's one way to replicate what's going on with the in operator. As I mentioned, the mutate is also a very popular function. This is a core function that's there in the dplyr, enable us to do a lot of derivations. So from the left-hand side, you can see for sorting and grouping and summary stats that you can use the arrange, the group by, and best practices enables you to use the ungroup after doing a group by, because what happens is further processing can be confused with the group by still in play. Other functions that are there are row-wise for cross variables, and you have the slice. Another category for the mutate is the logic and then assignments. And then there you have the case when. I prefer the case when over the if else because the case when is actually much more flexible. With the case when, you can have many options that meet one of those conditions, and then the evaluation can be true and set appropriately. With the if else, basically it's binomial, so you have a simple condition and it's a true or false for that one condition. Then you have the assignments that's there. You can also have the simple or the conditional expressions listed there. Again, you see that the mutate is extremely important for variable derivations, again, which we do a lot of. The summary stat functions are also there, the min max, the mean, and so forth. So a variety of things that you can do. With each variable that's being derived, you can put comma and then add more variables. So many of the examples I'm showing over here are just with one variable. Now, I also want to show or indicate a little bit about the Shiny. Many people, heard a little bit about Shiny, but not exactly know or what it is. Basically, Shiny is another R package, but it's more than that. As you see, it enables dashboard creation. And this is very powerful, mainly because it enables the engagement of user interaction with the data. So a lot of times, what we need is a programmer being able to maybe write some code or query the data set to help answer questions that managers or maybe non-technical people have. And so with the programmer, with an R programmer knowing how to construct a Shiny app, they're able to facilitate that, to empower your team, to make review of data easier, maybe generation of tables, maybe querying. That this tidy CDISC is a great example to illustrate that. From going through this, you can see that you can upload your atoms on here, and it's a predefined way to review any of the atoms that's there, drill down, do some querying, and then take a look at the tables that are available. So it encourages the interaction, and that's really great because then users team get more familiar with the data. They understand the message behind it. They can take a look at data issues. So a lot can be done with that. And so again, with the whole concept of open source, just like the R packages, being available for free, like that we have in the Farmerverse, any of the R Shiny apps that are available on the internet are also just like that too. You can copy them, you can use them, you can install them, and so forth, which again is extremely powerful. This is another website, and these links are available from our guru, where it shows the consistency that you see with SAS and R, and how to make that transition again a little bit easier. Not necessarily that all organizations are making the migration from SAS to R, but maybe looking at more of integration and coexistence, SAS and R. And so these resources are very helpful in order to bridge that the consistency that's there between SAS and R. And again, within our guru, you see the process of bringing data in, doing the type of data manipulation. So many things that you see there that we're doing in SAS, there's a corresponding way, package, function to do that in R. And there's some great cheat sheets available to help the transition for SAS programmers to learn more about R. And what you'll see is again the concept of very concise code. So while we will do a lot in the data step, in R to do the same type of things, it would be it could be broken up into several several independent R commands, or they can be streamed together. And on R Guru, you'll see the section as I see still here, or comparing with SAS. As I involved with a lot of organizations, with PharmaSug and Fuse, I'm also in tune with many of the comparisons, blogs that are being done, comparing SAS and R, and so I try to keep that keep R Guru current with these type of things, and then it's a great reference to look up what the similarities are. So, for example, I recently put some information in there about proc compare and how something very similar in R is available there for proc compare. I also have a cheat sheet available on R Guru that can be downloaded. It's a good bit of information in there, and it's the way I organize and the way I kind of provide information to programmers to want to learn R. And the way the concept is full of examples. So within R Guru, the way I do is I look up, I navigate to the type of syntax that I need, for example, to do any type of summarization of my data. I can look that up and I can copy that and paste that into my R session and then customize that. So right off the bat, I'm working with an example code that works, and I just need to fine tune it. So I don't have to necessarily remember this syntax, because that could be a little taxing. And so that's what what my R Guru cheat sheet has done for me. For whatever task that I need to do, I can actually copy the syntax and make it much more productive for me. So I hope this was very helpful information, getting you your feet wet about getting more into R, as a SAS programmer. And I'll have to turn it back over to Nikki for any questions that you may have.
Hi, Sunil. Thank you so much for a quick view from SAS to R.